Hey everybody, this is Brad from Johnson Small Engines, better known as the one-hand mechanic. If I can do it, you can too. Today we have here a Generac GP5500, and I had it in here about 3 years ago, and it does not run. And basically, you all know what to do with your generators is that you must start them every now and then to make sure they run. He went out there to start it, and he did say I may not have started it enough. Check your gas, and it smells like turpentine, or it looks real orange. You may want to flush it if it's been in there a long time. I can actually see that this gas is fresh and it smells real good, but you want to make sure you have full tank gas. Next thing you want to do is check your oil. You must make sure that your machine is perfectly flat. These have a low oil sensor right on the side of their block right here. Most of them do, and it's for generators that run low on oil, because if you run them a very long time, they will run out of oil. You have to be careful. But if you don't have it on flat level surface, it will think that it's out of oil and it may not run, even though it does have enough oil. It's very easy to check this oil. It should be right up to the edge, which this one is. It does look like it's a little dirty, so he's definitely used it. Make sure your oil is just about ready to come out. If you're level and it's flowing out, you may want to just smell it. Make sure it doesn't smell like gasoline. If it smells like gasoline, you definitely have a carburetor issue. That is if your oil is overfilled at level ground, pumping out all over the place. You're probably going to just have to go ahead and dig into your carburetor. That means that the carburetor did not do its job, and it let gas go from the tank right through the carburetor into the engine. So just keep that in mind. Now, his oil smells just like oil, like it should. It's not overflowing, which is good. You have a on and off switch here that probably a lot of people might miss. You just have to make sure it's on. You're going to go around to the front of your machine. You have a fuel valve here, and this one is in the off position fuel valve. Now, this may confuse you. A lot of people will put this arrow up like that. That technically is on, and that's off. And I just, for some reason, straight up and down has always been on to me. And I don't know if this means straight up and down, but it should be, no matter which way it is, it should still be flowing. All right. This is his fuel filter, which looks brand new. This is the air cleaner right here. And if you have anything dripping from the bottom of your air cleaner like gasoline, that's most likely you have a carburetor problem. So they put a sticker up here, and on the left hand side it is in the on position, and on the right hand side they're showing it in the off position. The lever is right here. You're going to leave it to the left for on, then over to the right to off. But I would highly suggest, so what I would do is I would put off over here on your gas tank, and I'll put on over here, just so you know when it's off and on. It's easy. You know, if you don't come out to it for a while and you don't start your machine, it's a nice little thing, just magic marker, silver magic marker. And also you could silver magic marker this little lever right here, because some people can't even see this, that it's a lever here. So we're going to go ahead and put it on choke. I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple pulls with the pull cord. This is not electric start. Let's see what happens here. Okay, absolutely nothing. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, if you have a 10mm wrench, we're going to go ahead and drain the carburetor bowl. Okay, so your air cleaner's here and your carburetor's here, and they give you a nice easy access bolt which will drain. This is the bowl of the carburetor, and this is usually where gas will sit and it will go bad in small quantities, which is here. It's normally not the gas in your gas tank that goes bad first. You can take a wrench, 10mm wrench, or you can, looks like you can use a Phillips head screwdriver. Get yourself a catch, something to catch the fuel in. And if you're sensitive to gas with your skin, I would highly suggest using gloves. Now all I'm going to do is drain out the carburetor bowl by just pulling this out. It's going to make a mess. Now that gasoline is on the yellow side. Looks like you might be using fuel stabilizer, which isn't a bad thing. I'm just going to go ahead and just let that flow for a while. And that will get rid of the gas that's in that bowl. It's sort of like just flushing out the whole fuel line. Now I'm just going to go ahead and just allow the gas from the gas tank to come in, through it, flush it. And then once you think that you're flushed from the gas tank through the fuel line, through the carburetor, go ahead and put the nut back in, snug it up. That gasoline definitely looks a little bit more yellow than what I saw in the gas tank itself, so this might be gas going bad. Now while we're on this side, right under here, if you can see this, that's your ignition coil itself. And up in here, which is a really bad area to put this, but this is where your spark plug is. And if we need to, we're gonna have to get in there and take that out just to see what it looks like. But I'm gonna go ahead and try to give us a couple more pulls. All right, so I'm gonna leave the choke off. Put the choke back on again, give it a try. Okay, it is definitely not starting. Okay, so before we go in to check the spark plug, it's such a hard place to get at. I'm gonna go ahead and just take your air cleaner cover off. Don't see any signs of gasoline dripping, which is good. I'm gonna take your air filters off. Now, so up in here, behind this little spot that's covered, that's just in case it backfires. That's your throat of the carburetor. Now with the choke in the off position, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cheat it with a little bit of fuel that I'm gonna pump up into the throat of the carburetor. I'm gonna go ahead and put the choke on. I'm gonna give it a couple pulls, and if it starts, we know we have spark. All right, I left the choke on, hoping that the fuel would actually just keep pulling it in, and it obviously only ran on the fuel that we had in there. So this is definitely a blockage in a carburetor, so we're gonna have to get this up on the bench. But a lot of times you could even try that a second time. You can try this a couple times with the choke in the off position so you can get it into the throat of the carburetor, which is really, you're not gonna be able to see that, but don't want to put too much in there, but you want to get enough that's inside that carb. I'm going to go ahead and put the choke back on again. Okay, well, it obviously is not drawing fuel at all. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll turn the fuel off for now, just so it's not going to be dripping anywhere if it starts to leak. I'm going to get this up on the bench and we'll get it apart. Okay, so I have it up on the bench here so you guys can see a little bit better. Just need a couple wrenches for this, a pair of pliers. I'll probably show you everything at the end as far as what I use, but 8mm takes off, and there's 6 nuts that bring off this outer cover of the air filter assembly. Once you have the 6 off, this should come off. Now I see a little bit of fuel dripping. That's just because I was spraying it in there pretty good. We have a vent right here that has to come out. Let's just pull that from the back side, like so. We have a 10mm socket needed for this nut around the back of the air filter, which is right here, and it just holds the back part onto a bracket. I'm gonna go ahead and take off these 2 nuts here. And there is a gasket that's going to be probably stuck to the back of this. If you tap this sometimes, you can get it not to peel off, but it'll just crack off. I don't know if you guys can understand what I'm saying, but if you tap on it, it may not stick to the metal cover, and you can kind of keep the gasket. Because if you guys are in need of using your generator and you're hunting around for gaskets, it's kind of hard to do. So you want to make sure that you're going to be able to reuse this gasket the best you can. Just tap on that outside covering. Now this is the fuel line here. I turned it off. The fuel line definitely feels a little bit stiffer than normal, which means he was probably using a lot of fuel stabilizer. Fuel stabilizer is good to use, but if you use too much of it, it can dry out your fuel lines. But we're going to go ahead and take off this one little clamp. You can use a pair of pliers. And a trick for getting the fuel line off, pliers on there, and then move it back and forth a little bit before you try to pull it off. It gets stuck to the metal, and if you twist it, it'll actually slide off a lot easier sometimes. And I use my clip removal tool, which is great for everything. Just push it off right there. I'm gonna try to catch the fuel that's gonna drop out of there. This is when you can check to see if the fuel's flowing from the tank. Turn the fuel on. That's a good flow right there. So we know that we're getting fuel to the carburetor without a problem. Just gonna sit that off to the side. Now, this is what they call an electronic fuel shutoff that's wired to the bottom. It's in a wire. 100% I know that these are not used in these particular models. Not sure how they're getting away with it, but all I know is that these electric fuel shutoffs, if you follow the wire, now this is where your clip tool will come in. You have to take it out of here, pull that clip off right here. Okay, and then if you need to get the clip out, they just undo themselves from here. So I'm just gonna leave it on there because we don't really need to take that off right now. And there's a clip here. Pop that clip up. And if you can always use a zip tie and figure it out if you can't get a clip to stay. But the reason why it's very important that these clips work is because you don't want this wire hanging up into your, this is your governor arm, and you don't want it wrapped around there at all. But if you look right here, just follow it right here. You see how it's got a pigtail? They're connected together. It's not even being used. You have to unconnect it and to get away from here. So this is they don't use them. You don't even need to have, if you buy a carburetor and it doesn't have one of these on, you're probably better off because that's one less thing you got to do. We're going to go ahead and pull this little teeny spring. This is your governor spring. This is an anti-surge spring. It helps it not surge. If your engine surges a lot, most likely it's a lean carburetor, which means it's a carburetor problem, it's blockage. But these springs here are important to help out. When they're running correctly, these springs to help keep the vibration down a little bit and the surging down. You have to take that off. Now, what I normally do is I'll try to tap on it, just like keeping a gasket on this side when I tapped on the metal. Tap on the carburetor and try to walk it out, pull it out while you're tapping on it. And then this arm here it'll slide up. There's a slide on top of the carburetor. And so you have to kind of work the carburetor out. And it slides off there. I'll show you right here. The slot is right here. You see there's a slot right there. Now it's leaking gas all over the place. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to tip this upside down, drain the gas into my container here. But we'll get it over to the bench and we need to get this thing apart. Okay, now when you take a carburetor apart, keep in mind where this bolt is going, this is your drain, where it sits on the carburetor is important because if you put this on the other side, nothing's going to line up as far as when you want to drain this in the future. So sometimes I'll scratch a line in the aluminum. If you use marker, which would be great, usually the gasoline will deteriorate the marker and it'll go away. I'm just going to go ahead and put a line, scribble a line in the aluminum and right here. And then I'll know that I'm putting it back exactly where I got it. And that will have everything lined up where it should be. Now the first thing we have to get off is this unuseful solenoid here. And it's a Phillips head screwdriver to get that off. A lot of times those guys can be very hard to get off, and sometimes a pair of vice grips will actually work. I'm gonna go ahead, I made myself a socket. This is a Phillips head from a Impact, and it's heavy duty, it doesn't strip. And hopefully, if you put enough pressure, you can get this thing to crack open. That one wasn't too bad. Be careful flipping this over because you can break your choke by accident. You know, if you flip it over like that, you know, it'll break it. So you just gotta be careful. Try to do this while it's on the other side. Once I have them loose, I'm just going to take that off real quick. Okay, now there's an O-ring here. And like I said, this, believe it or not, doesn't do a darn thing. So, okay, it's a 14 millimeter socket that'll go on the end of that. Taking off the bowl of the carburetor right now. There's also a gasket on the bottom of this, which is important. Wow, I'm very surprised. It looks really, really clean in here. I am surprised this thing would not run. And I know all you guys are gonna be like, well, this should be the culprit. It's not working. Well, we're gonna put it back just the way it was, and trust me, these don't do a darn thing. All right, so there's the jet in the center. That is gonna be our issue. And it's just a straight slot head screwdriver And I just took, if I do this automatically, I didn't even tell you guys, but I took the pin out of the float, and I'm going to pull the needle out, the needle and float, just to make sure that everything looks good there. Shake it just to make sure the float's not sunk. If the float was sunk, which means that the float has gas in it, then that engine would have had a whole bunch of fuel in it. Then you look into the needle and seat area right here. That can be also another area that can have contaminants, and that looks so good. I'm really surprised this thing didn't run. Okay, press firmly in counterclockwise to unscrew this jet. Now, I'm 99% sure this jet is most likely going to have you're not going to be able to see through it. And if that's the case, that's the problem. And it just takes a little bit of dirt, bad gas, gummed up gas. All right. It's not 100% clogged, but it definitely is. You can't see through it at all. All right. And also, this is the emulsion tube, and these tubes can get kind of clogged up. I don't see a whole lot, maybe down in there in that one hole. It looks like there's a little bit of stuff in here. You can kind of tell there's some stuff in here. Hard to see it, probably not on camera. I'm going to blow this out. Now, once I clean this off, okay, just again, you can't see through that at all. It's clogged. I'm going to blow these two out and I'll be right back. Okay, so here is the blown out version. See that hole? That's all it takes. Now, I did blow the emulsion tube out too, and it seemed pretty clear, but clean that up. Now, I'm going to go ahead, since we have it apart, if you really rebuilding this thing, this one actually has an adjustable low speed jet right here, which normally the carburetors don't even have that anymore. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to screw it in to make sure that I know how many times I have to screw it back out when I take it out, if that makes any sense. So half turn, that was a full turn, 1.5, 2, 2.5. Okay, so it was 2 3/4. So we're going to bring it all the way out. Now, the generators don't run at low speed, so there's really no reason to have this, but it has it, and we're going to take it out. Looks good. I'm going to blow some air through that, but there's also a jet under here that is really the low speed jet. I'm not sure. This is for adjusting it at low idle, but we don't use them anymore. All right, so we have to unscrew. Now, remember, no, it doesn't matter because it never idles, but just remember when you put this screw back in again that it's halfway between this right here. That's how this keeps the jet in. So it's a Phillips head or a slot head screwdriver will take this out. And this is technically your idle screw, which you're not going to need. And then you have it's a cap, but it just holds in the jet. That's all that does. And I take my little clip tool, get underneath it, pop it out. This one has a green gasket on it. Now you see that little teeny orifice? That's your low speed orifice right there. And you can see the hole right here, the big hole at the side. Let me see if I can get that in the light so you guys can see that. All right, so you see that big hole? What I normally do is I try to get a very small piece of wire, and I obviously have compressed air, you guys. I mean, even the spray I think that you can use in the aerosol can, that'll actually, I think it sprays your keyboards off. You have compressed air in the aerosol can. That would work to, if you can get a little nozzle on it and blow it. We're going to go ahead and put this back in again. Well, it can go in both ways. Doesn't really matter which way it goes in. Just make sure the flat spot that's on here is going to go flat against the carburetor. You may need a little bit of lubricant to get this thing to go down all the way, but you want to make sure you seat that all the way down. Put your hold down bracket on it, and then make sure you screw in. This is plastic, so you can cross thread it easily. Make sure you put that in straight as you can. I try to start them all by hand, and then I use a screwdriver to go in. And like I said, as long as you can get it halfway in, that'll line it up. And there is really no idle. This generator does not idle, but yeah, you want to put this back about as, because it's the idle in general. You just want to make sure you put it back where you got it. I'm going to put it in a little bit more. Just about right there. All right, so that's back in. We're going to go back to now. This is the gasket for the bowl. Make sure that that is seated properly, and if you need to, clean that area out, take it. But we're gonna go ahead now. The emulsion tube only goes in one way. Just make sure that the emulsion tube goes in with the long end here and the short flat end here, because that's the end that the jet actually sits on, like so. So you can put the long end in, just tap it in there like so. Put your jet in, that is now 100% clean. And the threads on the outside here, don't thread on the jet. The jet doesn't start threading until about a good 1/4 to a 1/2 inch inside this area, because this bolt has the threads for that. All right, so just make sure that you're not trying to screw it in from the top. You have to kind of tap it in there, and then put your flathead screwdriver in there. And then this is just brass, so you're just going to screw it in until you feel it get snug, and then stop. All right, so it just got snug. Just going to stop. Now we're going to put the float back in again. This is a spring-loaded needle valve that's on this float. Just make sure you remember how it goes. I'm going to put the pin in. We're going to go ahead and put the bowl on right now. Just make sure you put your bowl back on the line up the marks, and my marks are right here. I apologize if you guys hear the leaf blower in the background. And I'm trying to do everything on this side because I don't want to. You can technically take that off the choke arm if you want to, but I'll leave it on there. 14mm socket will tighten up this nut. Make sure it's very snug. Also, be careful that you're not pressing against your. Sometimes the choke plate will stick out. Make sure that's closed if you're working on it this way. I'm going to go ahead and put this is the fuel shutoff solenoid right here that does absolutely nothing, and I will show you that in a minute, because you saw that jet was very clogged, and I'm pretty 100% sure this should fire up and run after we put this back on again. Okay, we have to put the so-called idle screw back in, but I don't think that does anything either. You want to screw the screw all the way in until it's seated, and then turn it out 2 3/4 turns. All right, we are ready to go back on. Now, our gaskets are in good condition. Hopefully you guys won't have a problem with them. If you do need to get gaskets, you're going to have to look this up online. And before I slide it all the way on, we're going to get the governor rod, and we have to get it linked in with the carburetor, and it should slide in like so. And then your little teeny spring. Be real careful you don't bend this. Okay. Oop. And if you lose your gasket, make sure you put it back on correctly. I've seen people put on gaskets upside down and it won't run, and that's why. The gasket was on upside down. It's important that you put them on correct. We definitely flush the system out. We know that the fuel line is okay, or the fuel coming out of the tank is okay. Okay, we have to put this, make sure your clamps, make sure they lock in. If they don't lock in, make sure you get another one, or get new clamps. And then I'm going to put it right back where I got it. I'm going to plug it back to itself just like it was before. Everything's good there. Before I put the cover back on, I'm going to turn the fuel on just to make sure. And what I normally do, I'll give this a couple little taps here just to help the float and needle valve set up in there. If you see gas coming right out here, then you definitely have an issue. It's something you didn't go back together right or something, but it's flowing past the needle valve and out onto the floor. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put this on. I'm going to tighten up these two, and then we have one around the back here. This had the stud coming through. I'm going to go ahead and put the vent tube back through. This is the air breather vent. It goes from the valve cover to the air cleaner so it can breathe. It goes up and over into the valve cover. Gonna go ahead and tighten these guys up. Oh, should have tightened up the nut first. It's all right, I got it. Try to do them evenly. Gonna go ahead and put a choke on. The fuel is on. Give it a pull. Do another pull. Okay, so I just wanted to let you guys know that I put the air filter back on. I ran it outside. It is running good. You definitely want to keep an eye on it for 24 hours to make sure you're not dripping gas through your carburetor after you do something like this, but always make sure you remember to turn the fuel off when you're not running it. This video basically was how to get your generator up and running if you absolutely needed to have it happen. And yeah, so we did what we had to do to get it done. Just like that little jet I said about that being clogged, that can happen so easily with a little bit of fuel that goes bad and it just clogs that little jet. Before I go into the tools that we needed today, you can store your machine of many different ways. Everybody's got their own plan. My way is, well, when it's running, when you're done with it and you're ready to put it away when it's running, this is right before you're ready to turn it off, turn your fuel valve off, let it run out of gas, and you're gonna come around to the side here. Make sure you drain the carburetor so you can actually leave this machine totally dry, put the bolt back into it. And I just recommend that when you're ready to fire it up again and turn that fuel on, sometimes inside here, the float will actually get stuck in the down position. So when you turn the fuel on, it'll actually start flowing everywhere. And then you think you have a carburetor problem and you're like, why do I have a carburetor problem? I let it dry, let it sit when it was dry. Well, that's because the float's stuck down. So I recommend just when you turn the fuel on, come over here, and tap it with a wrench maybe or something hard. Just give it a couple good taps. That'll jolt the float. So when the fuel comes in there, the float can go up and shut the fuel valve, to shut the fuel off at the right time, and you won't have any problem. And then you can fire it up. Now the other way you can do it is you can also run your machine at the most 3 months and run it for about 25 minutes at a time. And also you really do need to check your electricity because the electric part of it, they can actually go dormant and they can actually stop working, the electrical part. I haven't had too many problems with that and I don't really get into all the electrical stuff, but at a really long stint without using your machine, so like maybe you didn't use it for a year or two, I would definitely recommend going out there and firing it up, plug something into it while it's running. And also you just want to make sure, you know, deep down that you're actually it's going to be there for you, and make sure that when you're running it out of gas, you know, and when you turn that fuel valve off and running out of gas, that you're actually doing the right thing and it's working well. A lot of people do have different ways of doing it. I always recommend putting in fuel stabilizer into the gas that you get at your gas station. If you can get non-ethanol gas, that is a huge plus. Unfortunately, we can't get non-ethanol gas in this area, but I just want to kind of give you a little bit of my information that I've learned through the years. And yeah, everybody has their way of doing things. That's just mine. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you the tools that we needed today. Okay, so the tools that we needed today from left to right, you're definitely going to use some rags. I used my 1/4 inch ratchet, electric ratchet. You guys can just use a ratchet, whatever you have in your tools. You're going to need a 14mm socket, 10mm socket, 8mm socket. I used a small extension here to help me out. 10mm wrench. This is a hardened steel. This is out of an impact set that I just put into a socket. This is doesn't round. I've had problems with regular Phillips head just rounding out because the steel is junk. So you just have to get yourself a good Phillips, because taking those screws out of the bottom of the carburetor, if you strip them, you're going to be in trouble. You can get away with sometimes using a pair of vice grips and clamp them onto the bolts or onto the screws, and you can get them loose that way. That's if you have to in a pinch, but you know, do what you got to do to get the job done. Flathead screwdriver, Also used my clip removal tool for many different things. A couple different pair of pliers, needle nose, and just a regular. You're gonna need some kind of a very fine wire to get into places in the carburetor to clean it. Some gloves if you guys are very sensitive to the fuel. Some kind of fuel catcher, and this is a squirt bottle that's metal that I can put gas into and squirt it through the carburetor. Yes, you guys are like, can I use starting fluid? I don't like to use starting fluid just because it combusts very easily, and if you get a backfire or something, it's not a good thing. So yes, you can use starting fluid, just be very careful. Just like to use gasoline, it's a little bit less combustible, and it's just being used as a tool. It's just this video, like I said, it was just about getting your generator running, and that's the quickest way we could do it. And that spark plug was in a very bad spot. So if you're out there needing to get your generator going, absolutely go and take the air cleaner cover off, spray some gas in there. That gives you the test that you have spark, you have compression, it runs, and if it stops running, you know that you have a carburetor issue. So these were the tools that we used today. But that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys got your generator up and running. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.